audience now for questions. I'm sure people have a lot of questions. Yeah, we'll pass the mic around. Just let us know. Yeah, over here.
All right, no problem. Hey, thanks for the talk today. I'm curious about how, when it comes to precision fermentation and cultured cells, how the distribution changes with those systems getting to cities, or are you guys looking at kind of similar long-distance distribution?
At Wildtype, we're not far enough along yet to know the answer to that question. We would prefer to start out with keeping our product in the US. However, because of the supply and demand and funding and everything, we could very well end up in Asia. So I think until we really understand better where our distribution is going to be, I can't really answer that question yet. You know, right now our product volumes are so low that it's just really pretty local right now.
Yeah, and I think similar constraints on precision fermentation. I mean, at a macro level, it's really driven by regulatory, which we haven't discussed too much. But the US is by far the biggest market where there's regulatory approval for proteins made with this technology. And there's a few other smaller markets. So I mean, that really drives the decision in terms of global route to market. But then in the US, I mean, for a company like Perfect Day that had sizable distribution, the goal was really to focus on key hubs, like most consumer products, cities where there are more forward-looking consumers open to trying new things. So I think, you know, great to drive adoption and get products out, but a bummer for folks in the Midwest, right, that didn't have as easy access to these kinds of products. Yeah.
Yeah, 2 questions. For Perfect Day, I did try your ice cream. It's really good. I remember I saw it in Whole Foods in San Francisco, and I was like, oh my god. And so I got it. I was wondering, like, who are the main customers? I'm vegan, but were there people not vegan?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, and I think, so for Perfect Day, the majority of the business was driven by selling the ingredient to big food companies to make products. But there was also a consumer arm of the business, really with the goal of gaining insights like that to understand who wants these products, how do we best message them. And the neat thing was there was really a pretty diverse mix. So lots of consumers that weren't necessarily vegan, vegetarian, they just wanted more sustainable products. A sizable number of vegan consumers, as you could expect. And within these sort of different segments, the nice thing was they all ranked pretty high on taste favorability. There was a strong repeat rate. And one of the things that was tricky is because this is a product that doesn't have any animal protein in it, it's vegan, except it's a milk protein that's identical to dairy, so it's also an allergen. So labeling is a real consideration too in terms of reaching these different, tricky stuff.
Oh, and one more question. When you were getting Rebellyous foods into school systems, who were the people that were against that, and how did you combat?
I know this is going to sound surprising. We encountered very little resistance. In fact, Lincoln, Nebraska was one of our biggest and largest school districts from day one. A lot of that really had to do with the fact that the people that we're selling to are school food operators. Their major needs are to make sure that all of the kids be able to eat and go home with full stomachs at the end of the day. Their biggest concern is that it has lower sodium, the right level of protein, and the right cost. If you meet those needs, honestly, we didn't have any substantial objection to what we were selling. And to this day, it really hasn't materialized. We've grown 50% year over month here for the last 5 years, and I keep waiting for the other shoe to drop. But I do believe that it hasn't materialized because we're not trying to say don't eat meat. We're basically just saying, what do you need? We'll meet that with an alternative that's better for the environment, better for animals, and better for the kids. So maybe they just think we're nice.
Yeah, I have a question. So, do any athletes eat any of your products, and if so, do you have any studies on how alternative proteins affect athlete performance?
It's interesting. I mean, I don't think we actually have any human clinical data of consumption
of these proteins over time. So I don't think there are sort of research studies. But in looking at the amino acid concentration of precision fermentation products, at least, it's identical. It's 1 for 1. So it would really, like, if you wanted to supplement whey protein with a protein made from precision fermentation of whey, I mean, I wouldn't foresee really any differences in performance over time.
I should mention, there was just a study that was done, that was actually out on NPR, and it was literally 2 days ago, where it was talking about vegan protein sources are equivalent to animal sources with lower saturated fat and other, deleterious effects not included. So check it out. It was on NPR. Frankly, I didn't read it. I didn't have time, but that was one of the most recent studies that I've ever seen.
You guys mentioned that price for protein and adoption is one of the biggest problems. What's different about these alternative proteins versus the change from battery eggs to free-range eggs a decade ago? Was that lightning in the bottle?
Does anybody else want to take that? I have some thoughts on it, but do you? Oh, okay. Your question is it the same as the cage-free movement?
Why is it not as cage-free movement succeeded? Was pretty successful in my impression. I might be wrong.
Yeah, so the cage-free movement was largely advocated from an advocacy perspective, and while consumers did adopt it, it really just came down to the fact that they really didn't have to pay that much more because, in my opinion, it wasn't really that much better for the chickens, and a lot of them lived indoors anyway. So, but for the operators, they saw somewhat of a difference in terms of price, and so passed that on to consumers. For a long time, alternative eggs, alternative protein products like all of ours have been 2 to 3 times the cost, not just the incremental cost that you would see. But you know my answer. It's all about price. Why was it easier? Because it didn't have its price differential that it did when the beginning of the alternative protein segment. Anybody else have a thought on that? About why was it the easier transition?
I was just going to speak for us at Wildtype Foods. I mean, a new to the world product is going to be more expensive to produce. You've never done it before. If it was cheap and easy, you could buy it at Walmart. It's complicated, it's technical, it requires, like I said, equipment that isn't even on the market right now that we have to figure out how to find or build ourselves, and so it has a curve, it has a cost parity curve, and at the beginning it's going to be very costly, and over time, as we learn how to do it better, more efficiently, the cost will come down.
I want to take a stab at it from the lens of consumer behavior, right? There is going from egg to egg is a smaller learning curve that consumers have to jump over versus trying to explain, because when we talk about precision fermented meat or cultivated meat or plant-based meat or even biodiverse grains like millet or sorghum, we're having to do multiple levels of education with the consumer. So we're having to get them over multiple barriers, and price happens to be one of them. And I think when you have far more barriers, in my experience, consumer education is far harder because especially if they're buying something off a shelf, you don't always have the chance to stand there and explain to them what they're buying. I think that is an often underlooked challenge to scale in consumer products.
Thanks for today's panel. So I think there's this kind of ongoing debate in the industry around what the pathway to consumer adoption is, and there's always kind of different views on which consumer groups are going to be the most likely to adopt or to try and on a sustained basis buy alternative proteins. And then, do you have any thoughts on which groups the alternative protein companies should target and message to? Primarily, is it the flexitarian community? Is it broader messaging like, say, Impossible Meat has done? And then, I guess, related to that, are there, there's part of the debate that's don't talk about animal welfare, don't talk about climate change, maybe talk about nutrition and health, but just go for taste and price and access. So do you have any thoughts on, is that the right strategy, particularly now that there's been somewhat of a dip in consumer sentiment?
So I'm holding the mic, so I'll start. I think, yes, I don't think there's one single absolute right answer, but it's going to start with, you need to get taste and price right, and you need to emphasize that in your marketing, rather than, oh, look how sustainable it is, by the way, it tastes good. No, it needs to be, it tastes really good, and it's not super expensive, and by the way, it's sustainable. So I think we do like to really oversimplify a lot of the consumer behavior questions. So, someone will say, oh, it's just taste or it's just price. Well, no, it's a lot of things. It's primarily taste and price, but people are different and people are motivated by many things, and they're potentially motivated by different things at different times depending on what mood they're in. So, I think, yeah, there are a lot of strategies that companies can go for, starting with flexitarians. What does flexitarian even mean? I feel like it's such a broad category, but it's maybe a useful one. Starting with people who are primarily motivated to eat animal products, but also have some desire for something that is better from a sustainability or animal welfare perspective. That's kind of, a very easy way to start. And then, from there, where do you branch out? Also, there's not one right answer, which is good because there's not just one company. And I think it's actually really healthy for the industry that different companies can kind of fill different niches, where, maybe one company is going for kind of the more vegetarian, vegan, like Sprouts shopping vibe. And that's good. That's good. That's something, somebody should be making that product and somebody else should be making this other product. It's more like, hey, we're meat for meat boys. Like that's, we can do more than one thing as an industry.
I think that's spot on. I think it so depends on the product and the consumer to drive your targeting, and it doesn't matter how sustainable you are. If it's really expensive, right, there's just going to be a barrier. And I think my answer is a little bit more around reducing the barrier for the consumer, whoever you're targeting, right? And so I think when this industry started, it was so focused on being new and innovative. And really, I think that is a giant barrier. Consumers want familiarity. And I can give you an example with Perfect Day. When the company launched their first ice cream, the back of the ingredient label, right, which is a completely FDA regulated territory, said non-animal whey. As a way to cue to vegans, this wasn't from animals, but it was whey. We switched that sort of halfway through the genesis of that product to say whey from fermentation. So just smallest change, and leading with familiarity. We started with whey and we used the word fermentation. It increased purchase intent by 94%, right? So it's like, I think that we need to get us away from sort of science level communications and think about why consumers want to buy products, which is taste, right?
So we have time for one more question, and then after we'll have some time where you can just come up to the panelists and ask your questions yourselves while we clean up. So yeah, so.
Lucky me. Thank you all again for fighting the good fight. I spent a lot of time looking at carbon footprints of large consumer packaged goods companies. So a question on the carbon side. Are you guys seeing any signals yet? It's really sensitive. Are you seeing any signals yet that they're considering plant non-animal proteins as a way to address their carbon footprints? As you guys probably know, a lot of CPGs, animal proteins might be half of their carbon footprint. It's really, really shocking.
So I'll start just by saying yes, a lot of the big CPG companies are getting involved in alt proteins, I'd say primarily plant-based, in sort of bigger and smaller ways, whether that's like, whether that's kind of, on the just, oh, we're doing an investment here or there, or we're buying this company, or whatever it might be, or launching their own brands. So yes, companies are doing that.
We're not a CPG company. We were at one time because, COVID hit and all the schools shut down, so that sucked. But we sold it to other people. We sold to CPG for a while. However, I can tell you one thing. Every April, we get a big bump from Earth Day from the schools. So we always expect it. We always make more. And, it goes away because then the kids leave for the summer. But anyway, we're always excited about Earth Day because that happens.
So I think there are. I think they're making decisions, whether it's the kids making the decision or the school food director. Something about it, does resonate with them. I don't know exactly what it is though.
Awesome, thank you so much everybody, and thank you so much to our amazing panelists. That's a wrap. So we are unfortunately at the end of our panel, but we will be around for some time if you'd like to talk to our amazing panelists. So let's have another final round of applause for all 5 panelists. I also want to bring your attention here to this great board of all the leading nonprofits in the field. So in case anyone wants another way to make some impact, so I want to walk through some of the nonprofits here. The first one is New Harvest. The executive director of New Harvest helped me a lot in getting started in this field. They fund a lot of amazing research, so I would love it if you could give them a chance too. Next, I want to bring your attention to the Good Food Institute. Claire is a part of GFI. She can correct me if I'm wrong, but they offer some amazing resources, including mentorship too, if that's correct. Yes. And so finally, we have Food System Innovations, so FSI. They do also have a great, they also fund some amazing research and fund a lot of other stuff in the field. Their recent study, the Nectar study, you might have seen it, is really, really cool. So I recommend you check it out regardless. And finally, I want to bring your attention down here to the alt protein jobs section. If any of you are curious, here's this website that just lists a bunch of jobs in the alt protein space. I also want to thank, obviously, 90 for hosting us, and also Chumin for all the banh mi that they gave us. And please, there's still some banh mi left. I don't want to eat all of that over the next 2 days, so if you could take one on your way out, I'd love that. And finally, before you leave, this is our ask, just actually a suggestion from Ash, one of our panelists. How do we ensure that people make impact? One of the things Ash suggested is we have people write it down. So we have this survey here, tinyurl.com/ap-panel. If you could take out your phones right now, go to that survey and just quickly answer the one question: what is one action you might take after listening to these amazing panelists? So yeah, that's a wrap. Thank you so much. We can end it there. We'll start cleaning up. So.